Something happened in Port Charles that nobody was fully ready for. A man walks back into town after weeks away, and within days, the people who thought they knew him best are left standing in stunned silence. A woman who has spent years being cautious, being careful, being composed, suddenly loses it completely on the man she's been building a life with. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, a secret buried at Wyndemere is about to come loose, and it might just tear this town apart. What is really going on here? Stick around, because we're about to walk through it day by day, and by the end, you're going to understand exactly why this is one of the most explosive 2-week stretches General Hospital has given us in a long time. Hey everyone, welcome back to Soap Pulse. I'm Anderson, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time, because we cover every twist this show throws at us. All right. Let's get into it. So here's where we start. The 2 weeks beginning July 20th open with Jason Morgan finally coming home from a father-son trip with his son Danny, and if you know this show, you know Jason doesn't just come home quietly. He comes home with decisions made. He comes home changed, and according to the spoilers we've gathered, he's about to sit down with the people closest to him, one by one, and tell them things they are not prepared to hear. But before we get to Jason's return, there's a whole storm brewing that starts almost immediately on Monday, and it's worth understanding who's involved and why any of this matters if you're just catching up. Let's talk about the players for a second, because there's a lot moving at once. You've got Carly Spencer, who's rattled right out of the gate, and it looks like this ties back to that black box Valentin Cassadine apparently swiped from Wyndemere. If you've been following the Wyndemere storyline, you know that box has been treated like it's holding something explosive, maybe evidence, maybe leverage, maybe both. Then you've got Willow Tait, who's dealing with her own unraveling situation involving Drew Cain, her husband who has spent a long stretch of story locked inside his own body, unable to communicate, essentially trapped. Willow, according to reports, does something strange this week. She asks Chase, her ex, if he'll take a trip with her to Washington, D.C. Now, if that sounds like a small detail, trust me, it's not, because Chase's current partner, Brooke Lynn, is almost certainly not going to be on board with that idea, and that alone tells you there's tension building in that corner of the canvas that's going to boil over. And then there's Nina Reeves. Nina explodes, according to the spoilers, on her new man, and reportedly this happens right around the time she and Michael Corbin have been intimate. So picture that scene. This isn't cold, distant anger. This is anger that erupts in the most vulnerable, unguarded moment possible, which raises the question, what did Michael do, or say, or fail to do, that flips things that fast? We don't know yet exactly what triggers it, but the timing alone tells you this isn't going to be a quiet disagreement. This is going to be raw. Now here's where the tension starts layering, because on that same Monday, Molly Lansing Davis goes to her mother, Laura Collins, and says she needs help, and word is this connects to the Sidwell case, the prosecution Molly's been building. If you've been watching, Ezra Bole has been positioned as somebody with murky ties to Sidwell, and Sidwell himself has been sitting behind bars while the fallout from his actions ripples through half the canvas. Molly needing Laura's help suggests the legal side of this case is getting complicated, maybe more complicated than Molly expected when she took it on. But here's the moment that really raises the stakes early in the week. Lulu Falconeri goes to Sonny Corinthos and Rick and tells them that Rocco could be in serious trouble. And then, in what might be one of the most consequential confessions this show has delivered in a while, Lulu reveals that Jason did not shoot Colin Sidwell's associate, the man known as Colum. Rocco did. Let that sit for a second, because this is the kind of reveal that changes everything downstream. For a long stretch of story, everyone believed Jason pulled that trigger. Jason let people believe it. Now, we know why, or at least we're starting to understand why, because it was to protect a teenager, a kid who made a devastating choice in a moment of fear or desperation, and Jason absorbed the consequences so Rocco wouldn't have to. That's the kind of sacrifice that defines a character like Jason Morgan, but it's also the kind of secret that, once it's out, can't be controlled anymore. Once Sonny and Rick know, how long before this reaches the PCPD? How long before Detective Joe Fitzpatrick, who's already circling Ezra Bole with pointed questions about what he's hiding, starts connecting dots that lead straight to a teenage boy? And speaking of Fitzpatrick, he's not just talking to Ezra about Sidwell casually. Reports suggest he's specifically probing whether Ezra has something to hide, and given that Sidwell was a known supporter of Ezra's, this interrogation could crack open something much bigger than a routine inquiry. Meanwhile, in a smaller but no less intriguing beat, Tracy Quartermain says yes to something on Monday, but immediately asks, "What's the catch?" Sources point to this being a conversation with Cody Bell down at the stables, and if you know Tracy, you know she never agrees to anything without immediately suspecting the other shoe is about to drop. That instinct has served her well for decades on this show, so whatever Cody's proposing, Tracy's guard is already up. There's something worth sitting with here before we move on. Think about what it means for a mother to sit across from a police captain or a mob boss or both and admit that the story everyone accepted for months was a lie she helped maintain. Lulu isn't a naive character. She's a journalist by training, someone who's built a career on chasing down the truth other people wanted buried. For her to have sat on this, to have let Jason carry the weight of a crime he didn't commit, tells you how frightened she's been for her son. And now that fear has to compete with the reality that Rocco could be facing consequences that no amount of parental protection can shield him from forever. That's the kind of decision that doesn't just resolve itself in one conversation. It ripples. So that's Monday. And already we've got a stolen black box, a furious confrontation between Nina and her new partner, a legal case that's getting messier by the hour, and a confession that could put a child in the crosshairs of a murder investigation. And we're just getting started. Tuesday, July 21st, brings us Carly keeping a secret from Valentin, and speculation points to this being connected to Sonny. Carly and Valentin have circled each other warily for a long time now, and if Carly's hiding something from him about Sonny specifically, that suggests she still doesn't fully trust where Valentin's loyalties lie, even as they've been forced into proximity by circumstance. This is also the day Anna Devane makes her return to the PCPD, stepping back into her role as police commissioner. For Dante Falconeri, this should be a welcome development, since it likely means some relief from whatever pressure he's been under running things solo. But it's not just good news for Dante. Reports say somebody delivers good news to Sonny as well, and there's a real possibility it's Brick arriving with dirt on Valentin. Alternatively, Sonny might simply be finding out that Jason is back in town, which, given everything Sonny's been navigating, would be its own kind of relief. Dante, meanwhile, gives Lulu some advice she probably doesn't want to hear. Word is he tells his ex-wife she needs to rethink her approach with Valentin and Charlotte, warning her that if she doesn't adjust her tactics, things are only going to get worse. Lulu's relationship with her daughter Charlotte has been a minefield for a long time, largely because of Valentin's influence, and Dante stepping in here suggests he sees a collision coming that Lulu either can't see or refuses to see. And then there's a smaller moment that's been quietly building intrigue among fans. Britt Westbourne and Tristan Roberts, the new doctor in town played by Dean Guyair, have another run-in this week. Britt is reportedly still bitter that Tristan ended up with her room over at Bobby's, which sounds petty on the surface, but if you've watched these two spar, there's clearly something more underneath it. According to the reports we've gathered, Tristan claps back at her this time instead of just absorbing her attitude, and there's a real vibe developing between them, the kind of tension that usually means one thing on a soap opera. These two are headed somewhere, whether either of them wants to admit it yet or not. Now, let's move to Wednesday, July 22nd, because things start shifting into a higher gear here. Michael is caught off guard by something, and it's believed to tie into a conversation Valentin has with Carly about how to best use that black box he lifted from Wyndemere. If Valentin is strategizing with Carly about leverage, that tells us the contents of that box are significant enough to be treated as a weapon, and Carly being looped in means she's either an ally in this now or being maneuvered into a position she didn't ask for. Britt also gets what's being described as a dose of tough love this week, possibly from family, but the more interesting detail is that she's up at General Hospital, reportedly meeting with Stella Henry and Elizabeth Baldwin. If that meeting is what it looks like, Britt might be getting her job back at the hospital, but if she does, expect it to come with conditions that aren't easy to swallow. This is a woman who's had a complicated relationship with her career and her standing at GH, and nothing about her path back is likely to be simple. There's a sweeter beat this same day. Portia Robinson stuns Curtis Ashford, and the leading theory is that it involves a baby name suggestion. With Marshall Ashford, Curtis's father, expected back in Port Charles soon, Portia may be proposing they name their son after him, which, if true, is the kind of emotionally resonant moment this show does well when it wants to give its audience a breath between all the chaos. Meanwhile, Brennan Kelly warns Anna about something. It could be about Valentin specifically, or it could simply be Brennan bringing her up to speed on everything that shifted in Port Charles while she was away. Either way, Anna stepping back into her old role means she's got a lot of catching up to do, and not everyone in this town is going to be thrilled about how much she learns. And that's really the theme running underneath this entire Wednesday, isn't it? Everybody's catching somebody else up on something, and every single one of those conversations is happening because somebody else in town has been keeping a secret. Anna's out of the loop on Valentin. Michael's out of the loop on whatever just caught him off guard. Britt's future at the hospital hinges on a meeting she doesn't fully control the outcome of. It's a day built entirely around information changing hands, and information on this show is never neutral. It always costs somebody something. Thursday, July 23rd, is where the emotional stakes really start climbing. Nina has what's being called a wild idea, and it's suspected to be some kind of desperate move related to Drew. We already know Drew's situation, trapped in a body that won't respond, and Nina, who has her own complicated history with him, may be reaching for something drastic to try and force a breakthrough. Sonny has a heartfelt conversation with Rocco this same day, and given that Lulu already told him Rocco was the one who shot Colum, it's likely we're watching Sonny step into a mentor role here, offering the kind of reassurance a scared kid in over his head desperately needs. And in a related beat, Jason himself is expected to advise Rocco, urging him to put the shooting behind him. It's a striking image when you think about it. A man who spent years in the shadows of organized crime, now counseling a teenager to move past violence rather than be consumed by it. There's also a quieter character beat where Michael and Alexis Davis compare notes, likely about Drew and Willow, suggesting the fallout from Drew's condition and Willow's increasingly frantic behavior is starting to worry more people in her orbit than just Chase. Speaking of Chase, Anna makes him an offer this week. According to General Hospital's own summer spoilers, a shakeup at the PCPD gives Chase a real chance to restore his professional reputation, and that shakeup almost certainly refers to Anna stepping back in as commissioner in place of Dante. It's suggested Anna may not agree with the suspension Justin pushed for against Chase, which would put her directly at odds with decisions made while she was gone and set up an interesting dynamic between her and whoever backed that suspension in the first place. Laura also has intel for Dante this week, likely connected to Sidwell, and in a separate but related thread, Valentin pays Laura a visit at her mayoral office. The word is Valentin wants Laura to help smooth things over between him and Lulu regarding Charlotte, and Laura, ever the pragmatist, agrees to help, but not for free. She demands a price. What that price is remains unclear, but knowing Laura, it's not going to be small, and it's not going to be something Valentin can easily walk away from once he's agreed to it. And now we arrive at Friday, July 24th, which might be the single biggest day of this entire 2-week stretch, because this is when Jason and Danny officially come home to Port Charles. There's an interesting behind-the-scenes wrinkle worth mentioning here too. Word is the production wanted Jason's return to line up with the show's landmark 16,000th episode, which meant bringing Steve Burton back from a break slightly ahead of schedule. But reports suggest Burton wasn't entirely finished with whatever time off he had planned, so the theory going around is that this mysterious out-of-town trip built into the storyline was actually a clever bit of narrative engineering, giving the character a reason to disappear again briefly so Burton could finish his break before returning to film properly. If that's true, it's a pretty smart bit of storytelling math, using an in-universe reason to solve a very real production scheduling issue. But back to the story itself, because a homecoming like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Jason Morgan has always been a character defined by absence just as much as presence. He disappears, and the town rearranges itself around the hole he leaves. He comes back, and everyone has to figure out where they fit now that he's standing in front of them again. That's exactly the dynamic about to play out across this entire back half of the 2 weeks, and it starts with Britt. Britt's reaction to Jason's return is one of the moments fans are most anticipating, and it's not hard to see why. He left town again without contacting her, and he did it while she was at one of her lowest points emotionally. That's not a small thing to overlook, and it's being read by many as a pretty clear signal that whatever door existed between Jason and Britt may be closing for good. How she processes that, especially in the same stretch of episodes where she's rebuilding her career and maybe catching feelings for Tristan, is going to say a lot about where her character goes from here. This is also the week Willow gets challenged by Elizabeth, and the smart money says it's about Drew. Willow, understandably, doesn't want anyone getting close to him as he starts to emerge from being locked inside his own body, and there's an added complication. She's reportedly run out of her medication. If you've followed Willow's mental health struggles on this show, you know that detail alone is a warning sign. According to General Hospital's summer spoilers, Drew makes a splash quite literally, and it ends up ruining Willow's newly refinished floors. It sounds almost like a darkly comic detail on the surface, Drew regaining control of his body in the middle of all things, a domestic mishap, but given everything hanging over Willow right now, it's likely to land as one more crack in an already fragile situation. Dante is also testing Chase this week, and the leading theory is he's trying to determine whether Chase has been quietly helping Willow behind the scenes or whether his loyalty lies fully with Brooklyn and the department. On top of that, General Hospital's spoilers confirm Dante and Chase attempt to repair their strained friendship this week, though trouble brewing at the Quartermain mansion threatens to derail that reconciliation before it can fully take hold. Brennan has to deliver bad news to someone, and the suspicion is he tells Nina he searched every inch of Wyndemere and came up empty, no black box, no evidence against Drew. If that's the case, it raises an obvious question. If Brennan didn't find it and Valentin's the one who took it, then Nina's entire plan to use that evidence against Drew may be built on a foundation that's already been quietly pulled out from under her, and she doesn't even know it yet. And then, in a twist that ties several threads together, spoilers indicate Jack does eventually get what he needs, but from a surprising source, likely Valentin. If that's accurate, it means Valentin isn't just hoarding the black box for his own leverage, he's also willing to hand pieces of it, or information from it, to other players when it suits his interests. That's very on-brand for a character who's spent years playing multiple sides at once. Spoilers also hint that Jack ends up paying a steep price for whatever he receives, and there's speculation that Nina is the one who ultimately has to repay that debt to Brennan, and reportedly, it's not about money. Rounding out Friday, Lucas Jones tells someone he's sorry, and the guess is it's directed at Joe, though it could also be aimed at Elizabeth, especially if it relates to an incident where he got drunk and passed out on her couch. Whatever the specifics, GH's own summer spoilers indicate Lucas is leaning heavily on both Elizabeth and Ava Jerome during this stretch, which suggests he's going through something significant enough that he needs more than one support system to get through it. So that's week 1. A stolen black box working its way through half the cast's hands, a hidden confession about who really shot Colum, a PCPD leadership shakeup, Nina's emotional explosion, and Jason's homecoming setting off a chain reaction that's only going to intensify. And now, we move into week 2, the stretch from July 27th through the 31st, which brings a new face to town and starts paying off nearly everything that's been building. This is the week we meet Hudson, played by Troy Apple, a businessman who arrives on the heels of Tristan's debut and, according to our sources, may be connected to some of the show's more villainous players. There's speculation floating around that Hudson could turn out to be an ally of the still imprisoned Sidwell, which, if true, means the fallout from that case is far from finished, and Molly's prosecution might be about to get a lot more complicated with a new adversary working the angles from outside the courtroom. We'll also finally see what Sonny and Rick decide to do with the knowledge that Rocco shot Colum and that Jason covered for him. That's a decision loaded with consequences no matter which direction they go. Protect Rocco further and risk exposure down the line, or let the truth surface and deal with the fallout of Jason having lied to protect a teenager. Either path changes the emotional landscape of this storyline significantly. Britt's reaction to Jason continues to play out this week as well, and it sounds like we're going to see the full scope of the choices Jason's making about his life going forward, choices that increasingly seem to not include her. In fact, spoilers suggest Jason spends much of this week visiting the people closest to him, Sonny, Tracy, Britt, Carly, and others, essentially informing them of the decisions he's made now that he's finally, as the spoilers put it, a free man. That phrase alone, a free man, suggests Jason's return isn't just physical, it's a return with intention, with a clear sense of what he wants his life to look like moving forward, and that's going to require some hard conversations with the people who've built expectations around who Jason used to be. Elsewhere, Jack and Nina, or as some fans have started calling them, Jack and Na, reportedly keep getting closer, to the point where it sounds like their relationship is moving into a more physical phase on a regular basis. Meanwhile, Sonny continues his efforts to take Valentin down, but Carly, according to the spoilers, may never be able to forgive him, whatever him turns out to mean in this context, whether it's Sonny's methods or Valentin's actions that she can't get past. There's also a storyline heating up between Ethan and Ava, even though Lulu specifically warned Ethan to stay away. And in classic soap opera fashion, that warning might have done the opposite of what Lulu intended, possibly making the whole thing more enticing to Ethan rather than less. It's hard not to see the appeal, honestly. Ava Jerome, as a character, has never had trouble drawing people into her orbit. Warnings be damned. But here's the catch, whatever sparks between them isn't built to last, because reports indicate Ethan ends up on the run before too long, which puts a hard ceiling on how far this particular entanglement can go. Drew's condition also takes a major step forward this week, as he's expected to fully regain his mobility, and for Willow, that's framed as devastating news rather than a relief, which tells you just how fractured things have become in that marriage, and how much Willow may be dreading a version of Drew who can finally speak, act, and confront things for himself again. Chase and Brooke Lynn's storyline also reaches a potential turning point, as they may finalize the adoption of their daughter Fu unless the truth about her biological father surfaces first and throws the entire process into chaos. Given how many secrets are already unraveling across Port Charles during these 2 weeks, the timing of that particular truth bomb, if it drops, could not be worse for the couple. Anna, meanwhile, may give Chase a genuine shot at becoming a detective again, which would be a meaningful redemption arc for a character who's spent a long stretch of story fighting to reclaim his professional standing. And in a smaller but sweet development, Rocco is expected to grow closer to Scout, who's being aged up into her teenage years as new actor Caden Tokarski debuts by the end of the month, a reminder of just how much time has passed for these Port Charles kids we've watched grow up on screen. Finally, Cody Bell is left dealing with what's described as a brutal rejection from James, closing out the 2 weeks on a note of quiet heartbreak amid everything else that's exploded across town. So when you step back and look at the full picture here, what you're really looking at is a show doing what General Hospital has always done best, layering personal secrets on top of legal jeopardy, on top of romantic entanglement, until every storyline is touching every other storyline. Jason's return isn't just a homecoming, it's a detonator, setting off reactions in Britt, in Sonny, in Rocco, in nearly everyone he's spent years protecting or being protected by. Nina's explosion isn't just a moment of anger, it's the visible crack in a plan that may already be falling apart behind the scenes thanks to Valentin and that missing black box. And Willow's unraveling isn't just about Drew regaining his mobility, it's about a woman who may not be ready to face a husband who can finally see clearly again. What happens when Rocco's secret finally reaches the wrong ears? What does Jason actually decide now that he's calling himself a free man? And what exactly did Valentin find in that black box that's worth using as leverage against half of Port Charles? We don't have all the answers yet, and honestly, that's the appeal of watching this unfold week by week. The spoilers give us the shape of what's coming, but the emotional weight, the way these actors bring these confrontations to life, that's something you can only really get by watching it play out for yourself. That's everything we've got for the 2 weeks of July 20th through the 31st on General Hospital. If this kind of deep dive is your thing, make sure you're subscribed here at Soap Pulse, because we'll be right back with more the moment new spoilers drop. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Anderson, and I'll see you in the next one.